Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 58. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm probably doing better than Kameron Kelly on this Friday morning.
That's a low bar to clear. Do you want to jump into it? Or you kind of brought us into it, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Always something in Pittsburgh. At least you never know what you're going to wake up to. It's kind of, I think, the mantra you've talked about before. Yeah, Kameron Kelly reportedly arrested early Friday morning on the South Side, charged with 2 counts of terroristic threats and 1 count of resisting arrest. Dave, I know you wrote the article for it on Steelers Depot after it was first reported. I think you probably have more details than I do right now, so tell us what happened to Kameron Kelly.
Yeah, according to KDKA and all, the criminal complaint says police were called to Mario's Southside Saloon for a man identified as Kelly refusing to leave. He's accused of also threatening an employee, saying he would knock him out because the jukebox didn't play the song he requested. I've been there.
That's not a good place to be, is it, Dave?
No. I've gotten angry at a few jukeboxes over my time. No, not to make light of it. Police say they tried to explain Kelly that he wasn't allowed back in, but he tried to go back inside anyways. The officers on the scene reports in the criminal complaint that during all of this, he accidentally stepped on the foot of a woman identified by Kelly as his girl. Kelly then allegedly became aggressive and threatened the officer. As Kelly allegedly continued resisting arrest, the criminal complaint says the situation was getting out of hand. In order to gain control, the officer punched Kelly in the face multiple times. I've had that happen too. Kelly was then arrested. He was treated at the hospital, then taken to Allegheny County Jail. So that's what we know. Once again, according to the most recent update on KDKA, I have not seen anything from the Steelers on this. I assume if we do get something, that is something that they're looking into. Kind of short and sweet statement, but man, when you talk about a guy that's let's face it, he's a fringe guy at this point. Not good for him right now, and now it'll be interesting to see if he makes it to the weekend, and if he does, if he's active.
Right, a bit player, backup player, really been removed from this defense very early on. Was the short-term replacement for Sean Davis, and then trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Then it was in some dime packages, but did not play well. The Steelers made the smart move to have Cam Sutton and Mike Hilton in dime, and so Kelly's really just been a pure backup and a decent special teams player on the coverage unit throughout the year. But this obviously calls his roster spot into question, and you got Marcus Allen sitting on the practice squad, who I think can do probably the same thing. I mean, I guess doesn't really play free safety the way Cam Kelly does, but let's be honest, Cam Kelly does not play free safety well either, even though that's kind of his spot. So I could see them making a roster move. The margin for error on these fringe roster guys is very thin, and that might be enough to get himself cut.
Boy, we went from a guy that we didn't know much about back in April, signed out of the AAF, and then there were the offseason kind of reports were kind of glowing, I guess.
He had a good camp. He did well in Latrobe.
Yeah, and then we get into camp, and he did okay, and then lo and behold, you get into week one because of Sean Davis being banged up. He's your starting free safety, and we all know what transpired not long after that. Minkah Fitzpatrick comes to town, and even his he did have an interception. What was that? That was a game against the 49ers, wasn't it? That he had the tipped.
Minkah tipped that one.
Yeah, Minkah tipped that one, and he's even gotten less and less playing time as the season has gone. I think somewhere around the lines of like 130 or something snaps, a little bit more than that, of course, on special teams. So I think the obvious call-up would be who? Marcus Allen, if something were to transpire there. So he's not long for. Regardless, I mean, even if he makes it through this, it's going. The days of Kameron Kelly in Pittsburgh are probably not long at this point.
Right. Was the old Herm Edwards saying nothing good happens at 2 a.m.? I don't know exactly what time this was, but early in the morning, and nothing good happens at 2 a.m.
Yeah, my old man says if you're out that late, you're usually trying to outrun a radio, a police radio. One thing my old man used to always tell me, he says, I don't care how fast a car you have, Dave, you can't outrun a radio. And
you never outran a radio?
Huh?
You never got
I maybe once or twice, some back streets or whatnot, but I paid for it in the end. They get you. They get you sooner or later there. Tell us a little bit about your dust-ups on the South Side.
Oh, so many. Me and Todd Haley at Tequila Cowboy. Oh, if those walls could talk, Dave.
I hear you. Once again, not to make light of it, but, I mean, look, that's all we know on this, and it's unfortunate. And we'll just have to see how things transpire here. If he doesn't practice today, he's going to have to be on the injury report listed somehow. So I guess that's, not injury related, or either that or be face.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted regardless. I'm sure the team will have a statement just acknowledging the incident, and we'll see if he plays this week and if he holds on to his roster spot. But a disappointing year for Kameron Kelly on the field, and this certainly does not help close out his 2019. All right, Dave, let's jump to the Steelers injury report. Some more good news there. Juju Smith-Schuster practicing in full and has probably a good chance to play this weekend against the Jets. Vance McDonald seems to be progressing nicely as well. How about you wrap up the injury report for us?
Yeah, in fear of jinxing it here, Juju Smith-Schuster, after being previously listed on Wednesday as a limited practice participant, he practiced full on Thursday, as did Vance McDonald, as did cornerback Artie Burns, who was dealing with probably the flu or something along those lines. I think positives, obviously, in regard to all three of those players. Whether or not Artie Burns dresses might be dependent on, if they make a roster move or need Cam Kelly, because Artie's been he's been a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks after spending a little bit of time getting back from that knee injury there. So Randy Fichtner was asked about Juju when he talked to the media on Thursday. He says, "I'm hopeful." He goes on to say he's practicing. I don't know from the training staff. We'll find that out later. It's great to have him back out practicing. We'll see. Even if he plays first game back after missing 4 games, probably going to be a little careful with him. I would think to some degree, conditioning standpoints or whatnot. We'll have to see how that is. But I think the biggest thing is just getting him back on the field will be pretty big there. So keep your fingers crossed. If you've had him crossed so far this weekend, we'll see what transpires on Friday. I would think that he gets listed no worse than questionable, barring something happen at practice today. And once again, I would think that maybe we'll get word today that Vance McDonald is kind of officially out of protocol. And if that does happen, then I think there's a good chance that Vance McDonald will be back this week. And once again, the rest of the guys. We forgot to hit one of the.
Yeah, well, I was just about to take you there. Yeah, this is a big one. Yeah, Joe Hayden did not practice with a foot injury, which is never a good sign for a midweek, not practicing report.
Yeah, and I don't think there's been too much about that either, as far as, was it just, kind of achy or whatnot, or does he have a serious issue there? I don't think we're going to, we'll have to wait and see what the Friday practice report says. If he doesn't practice today, it's going to be one of those uh-ohs,
right.
And then Artie Burns will probably have to dress if that's the case. So, once again, just not a lot of information other than him not practicing because some sort of a foot issue. Nick Vannett out with an illness on Thursday. You would probably expect him to be back today. Ramon Foster got his veteran day off on Thursday, and all those other guys that were given Wednesday off with the veteran days off. Alejandro Villanueva, Mark Barron, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, and outside linebacker TJ Watt all returned to practice as expected on Thursday. So Hayden, definitely a guy to watch. His name on the Friday injury report, along with, of course, Juju and Vance McDonald.
Yeah, Hayden's the one certainly to monitor. Juju and Vance are likely to play. Juju, well, I think getting both guys back, but especially Juju returning is going to really help for Duck in the middle of the field. I know you talked about how the Steelers really haven't hit, kind of intermediate routes, middle of the field, which they haven't. But I think getting Juju back, your top slot receiver, is going to help remedy that. And then just look at the injury report. It just kind of reminds me of, despite how good this offensive line is, how old it is when your 5 starters have been getting the veteran day off. So it just kind of reminds you that as talented as this group is, that they're getting up there in age.
Yeah, and obviously, what happens if Hayden? If Hayden's not a go?
I think you got to start Cam Sutton. You can't start Artie. You can't start Justin Lane. Certainly can't start Justin Lane.
Right, and I just had, we'll get into the Jets here in a little bit, and I'm sure you're going to tell them about who we have on today. But that Robbie Anderson, he can get on top of some outside corners.
Yeah, one of the fastest, most explosive receivers in football right now. And you're right. Yeah, I should mention this a little later in the show. We do have a beat writer for the Jets on today, Andy Vasquez. We'll talk to him a little bit later in the show. You can follow him on Twitter at Andy_Vasquez, VASQUEZ. You can speak to him a little bit later on. So that's the injury report. Big name to circle here is Joe Hayden. Hopefully he can return in some capacity for Friday's practice, and we'll get a end of week designation on him. Okay, Dave, Randy Fichtner, Keith Butler, as they always do, speaking to the media on Thursday. Let's start with Randy Fichtner, because honestly, he probably has more to say than Keith Butler did, and just talk about the protections. And I thought that was interesting, because I know we talked about it a lot during the week about the breakdowns in pass pro. I know Jalen Samuels had pointed out that there was a problem. Fichtner seemed to kind of say it was more of a one-on-one player failure kind of deal. What's your take on the situation?
Yeah, I think he's not being totally forthcoming there. Although you don't expect him to come out and say we got outcoached.
Right.
Because
but what Samuels said, you have the quote for Samuels, because he said basically that we had to go in there and kind of fix our protection a little bit, and Fichtner was saying basically you have to win your one-on-ones.
Yeah, most definitely, and know your assignments on top of it, and as you broke down, the Bills and what they did defensively, as soon they did a good job adjusting along the way. As soon as the Steelers looked like they had something else, had something fixed, they would change it up.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I think in that game there were certainly coaching issues where Samuels is right, where they just didn't have the protection to block it, and there were instances where they did block it up well on paper, but then there were player execution issues where I thought Matt Feiler twice came off his man to pick up a DB blitz that the running back was responsible for and left his guy free. So I think it's not Fichtner being totally wrong here and trying to play put the blame on the players. I think he's going to take a little responsibility for this when he says I don't think anything went wrong, when clearly some things went wrong from a schematic protection standpoint, but there were certainly player individual failings as well. Yeah,
and normally when you hear like Keith Butler, talking on the defensive side of the ball, he'll say, players trying to do too much and not do their job and trying to cover too many different things. That's where you run into problems. And I think you outlined pretty good of how Matt Feiler was the perfect example of that this past week. Not handling the inside out, if you will, and trying to do both of it at the same time. And then what happens is Connor's running into somebody, and then they both get beat. Yeah, and you have two guys on top of your quarterback at that point. Look, when you get into that film room on Monday, let it be somebody else. You can only do so much, and especially in a pass rushing situation, as creative as they were in getting after it, you definitely got to work inside out on that, and you can't. And look, you don't want those defensive ends on your running back anyway. Let them go after those corners or whatnot.
Yep, do your job. But first question Fichtner was asked, do you expect to see some blitzes Sunday from the Jets? And certainly I think Fichtner does. He says he does. Jamaal Adams was 6.5 sacks this year. We'll talk about him when we preview the New York Jets. And Greg Williams, one of the most aggressive defensive coordinators in football. I fully expect Williams to test the Steelers' protections to see if they've made the correct adjustments. I hope that Pittsburgh has, and I imagine that they will have made the right corrections, but certainly going to be tested this weekend.
Boy, he's typical Greg Williams, right? Aggressive. Mm-hmm. When you think of Greg Williams coached defenses, you think aggressive, you think hard-hitting, physical, usually good tacklers in there, and he'll throw the kitchen toilet at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this Jets defense is all of those things. They're a good tackling team. They're physical. They're intense. They're going to get after you. They got, I think, the 5th highest blitz rate in football. So Pittsburgh, again, I said this on Twitter. I think I said this last show. If they can't figure things out from a protection standpoint, if they haven't made the correct adjustments, their offense is going to sputter again. They will not win this game. But again, I think that they will have made the adjustments once you've seen it and you have some time to prepare for it. But again, the Jets are certainly going to test out to see if that's true or not.
He also talked a little bit about, did you get away from the run game too early this week? He says, I don't know about that. The whole situation in the second half might have dictated it a little bit more. Well, obviously in the fourth quarter, at the, 8-minute, 7-minute mark, whatever it was. I mean, that's to be kind of, expected there. He goes on to say, I think maybe at halftime it might have been 50-50. I don't know. He got a new definition of, what was it at halftime?
I think it was pretty close at halftime. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think someone said it was pretty even. My issue was basically with the third quarter, with how pass happy they got and kind of got away from being 50-50.
There were definitely some. I went and looked. There was definitely maybe a first and 10 or 2 in there where you'll probably run the football. Some second and I don't know what was it, like 5 situations. Second and 4 or 3 one time. Situations. So I think if you go back and you look at the play-by-play sheet and you look at the time and you look at the score, you could at least probably have carved out 4 or 5 more runs at least. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I'm not someone to like balance for the sake of balance, but when you're in that game plan against a weaker Bills run D than pass D, when you're facing when you're starting a rookie quarterback that's played well, but was having his issues obviously in that game, and the Bills pass rush was really getting after Pittsburgh and exploiting them. I think the idea of really going as pass heavy as they did in a close game early in the second half was just a mistake, and that's all it was. And you move on and you try to correct it, but it was a mistake.
Yeah, and you know me about run pass splits overall. Really, I don't give a damn about them.
Same. This was Ben at quarterback. I wouldn't complain. I'd be like, what, you got Ben, you're gonna throw it a lot. That's fine. When you got Duck, obviously, it's a totally different story.
It is a totally different story. It becomes where a punt's a good play, in this offense, and especially all the things that at least that we outlined or thought we saw when previewing the Bills just screamed, run the power at them. And I think you have since wrote I think we talked the other day about maybe four pulls in there. Foster being responsible for 3 of them. God, I hope we don't have to see the damn Wildcat again either, because I mean that's scraping the bottom of the barrel. If you will. Okay, you're trying to protect a quarterback. I get that, but he could still hand the ball off, and you do things that are more in character, and that's one of the things that I think we've talked about for a little bit. Now even in some of these wins is what is their character on offense at this point? At least when you go back to 2004 and a rookie, Ben Roethlisberger, this was a power running team. Run. Now just because you start off a game, which wasn't the case really against the Bills, you start off and he talks about success rates yesterday and all like that. Look, nobody's more on board than success rates than I am. But just because you get maybe 3 bad runs in a row, doesn't dictate having to throw the football all that much. And then you get in a situation where you just look, it was still a 7-point game, for Christ's sakes. Stick with that run as long as you possibly can. And once you got to the that 7 or 8 minute mark, obviously, that's going to dictate you a little bit more urgency there. And then that's another thing he kind of talked about yesterday is, really kind of the first situation where it's been in that, got to have it kind of mode there. And then hopefully Devlin Hodges will learn from that. And as you pointed out too, a couple of the bad throws that Devlin Hodges made the other day weren't interceptions. They got to do it. If they're going to protect him, they're going to have to make the reads a little bit more simpler for him, and he's got to do a better job of just saying that, hell or high water, I'm not, I can't have the attitude that that's going to be my guy that I'm throwing to on this play. He's got to be willing to quickly progress this stuff, go off of his first read, and either get, there was one instance in that film where he had two people opening on each side of the flat. Over there as well too. So yeah, I mean, look, this is the struggles of having a young quarterback. Kind of switching, not really gears here, but Keith Butler says, is this defense a result of having good players, high quality players? Well, yeah, duh. And and really, it carries over to the offense right now too. And I understand a lot of people are frustrated with the offense. I mean, it's hard not to. But I mean, at your key position right there, right now, I mean, you don't have high pedigree talent there. And then you talk about all the guys that have come in, the Canes and the Tevin Jones and obviously Kareth White, and you're missing look for Zach Gentry in there. I mean, your offensive line is good, but I mean you're missing Connor and all like that. It does make it and I'm not giving him a pass here, but it's got to be incredibly challenging for Randy Fichtner right now. And so within that, run the damn ball and punt it if you have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's been challenging. I can't imagine how difficult it's been, but that's what they get paid to do, and you got to go out there and produce. With Hodges, honestly, I think the reads are super simple. I mean, it doesn't get much more simple than a Hank concept, reading the hook linebacker, then working curl flat. I mean, that's basic stuff. I think he just screwed it up. I think he just has to do a better job with reading it better. I don't think you can simplify it any easier than that. So you just want to see him be able to bounce back. And one other note I had from Fichtner is, asked about the 4th and 7 play where they come out in 12 personnel with Zach Gentry, no Deontay Johnson, and Fichtner just basically saying sometimes you have to call the plays and have the personnel that you practice with, and you can't put a guy out there if they haven't repped it in practice, which is fair. Something probably gets lost on some fans and myself included sometimes. If they didn't do it in practice, probably can't call it for them in a game. My big issue on that play, honestly, was just why is Gentry releasing another route when a nickel blitz is potentially coming? I think they just, again, didn't have the answers for some of the edge pressure, and they're going to get tested again by the Jets this weekend.
Yeah, I think the other issue is why not play a little bit more cat and mouse in that situation there, because Sean McDermott sure had the upper hand in that coming out of a 2-minute timeout. He waits to see how you line up. He calls a timeout. Makes a couple of changes. I mean, that should have been a key right there. Maybe change something up. I get you have specific plays in certain situations, especially down and distance, and obviously having to need it, but kind of played right into their hands, if you will. And as you mentioned, sending Gentry out too when likely to face something. Number wise in that situation was going to come in that situation there. So look, just all the way around, they dropped the ball, schematically and coaching wise and individual effort wise on the offensive side of the ball as well too. So about what'd you think about him and the mixing of the running backs, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's going to be a challenge. First game Connor's back. I think they'll kind of figure it out more the more they go along and kind of mix and match and all that. But to go back to the final drive, Hodges did say, by the way, that he just didn't hear the spike call. He should have spiked the football, should have clocked it, and just didn't hear it or didn't think of it, whatever the case was. So just a learning opportunity for him because he really hadn't been in that situation before, which isn't an excuse, but hopefully again just a very teachable moment. Unfortunate result there.
How much are you going to use Connor? Look, one thing I think we need to underscore here is Connor was not on the injury report this week, so that's obviously a good sign. Not even just listening with his shoulder as a full participant, it shows that this guy is probably ready. And he didn't get a lot of work. Obviously, overall, what did he have, like 12 touches total against the Bills, though? But I mean, he looked good. When he did have the football in his hands there. So assuming that, he's got some conditioning back there, he's probably a little bit stronger. He knows how, has a pain tolerance level now or pain management kind of, he knows that he's not going to be 100% the rest of the season. And he said as much during the talk with the media on Thursday there. So within all that too, I mean, this is your lead horse there. How much do you give, how much of a load do you put on him this week?
Well, obviously, I don't think you can go back to the standard Connor 90% snap count that he's been used to when he's healthy. But I think you got to start ramping this thing up because he is your best back. And I get the rotation, I get what these other guys bring, but you want your best players on the field as much as possible. So I don't have a specific number in mind. It's obviously going to depend on just kind of a little bit of circumstance. But I want him to be probably around 12 to 15 carries and maybe 17, 18 touches total in this one.
And you would obviously probably try to get Kareth White in there for at least 3-4 touches, maybe, right? Would you rather have him in there or Jalen Samuels?
I mean, I think it just depends. Obviously, if you're in a passing situation, Samuel's more established with the route tree. It just depends on what you're going to call, what you repped in practice. It depends on how long a drive is. If you go 3 and out every time, it's hard to really establish a running back rotation. So if you go on an 11-play drive, you're probably working in more guys than you are on a 4-play drive. So I think it's hard to really go in with a specific mindset. I think the goal is just getting your best players on the field. I think Connor's obviously your best running back by far in terms of, schematically, you can call anything with him on the field. There's no kind of restrictions, I think, with the offense that you might have with a Jalen Samuels or a Kareth White or even a Benny Snell to a lesser extent. So I don't have numbers in mind. I think they're all going to get some work in, but I think Connor snaps have to ramp up.
I do as well, too. I'd like to see him use them a little bit more, maybe on some of those design screens, Mm-hmm. Look, I think the one thing you need to be cognizant about this week against that Greg Williams defense is trying to get the football out of Hodges' hands. And obviously it's hard to do in second and third and long situations here. But try to do some things to get the ball. A couple of those quick, even the quick tight end, slip screen or whatnot. Situation there. I think they need to try to take a little bit more advantage of Connor and his abilities this week. And on top of that, when it comes to mixing and matching the running game, how much did we talk about during training camp about having 2 backs on the field at the same time in Connor and Samuels? Now, obviously, Connor's missed quite a few games, mm-hmm. and Samuels was down a little bit, a little while as well, too. But now that you presumably, is this the week to maybe bust out a little bit of that for 3 snaps or whatnot?
Maybe, yeah. It's just been tough. Everything's kind of been scrapped since with all the injuries in that backfield. I mean, they actually did it once last week, so I mean, I guess it's still in the playbook. But if they don't do it, I'm not going to miss it too much. To be honest with you.
How many times this season do you think both those guys have been on the field together at the same time?
As in Connor and Samuels,
right?
Whatever happened in week 1, I don't think it's happened since week 1 because they've both been hurt. So the 3 snaps they probably did against New England, that's probably about it.
I think I counted them up 11.
Really? Okay. Has it been after the New England game? Have they?
I didn't look at breakdown per game.
Okay.
I just looked at totals by going through the grouping rundowns and all. So,
okay.
But look, Kareth can run that power.
Yeah, anyone can run power. I mean, it's not exclusive to a whoever the back is, or just running behind the guard. You just got to have the vision to follow your block and hit the hole. So I think any of those guys can do it.
Yeah. So I'd like to see this, and he gives you that little bit of a little bit quick explosiveness in there. And he's had he's had a couple of nice little runs
mm-hmm.
off of situations like that. I don't want to be talking on Monday about why weren't they pulling DeCastro?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Dave. Anything from Keith Butler? I still laugh at them talking about Le'Veon Bell and how they're used to tackling Bell in training camp. This is the time I'm thankful for being a nerd and having detailed training camp notes, because I looked up the last time Le'Veon Bell was tackled in a training camp setting. It was 2015 by Gerard Holloman and Lawrence Timmons. So I don't think that that room really knows what's it like tackling Le'Veon Bell, at least not recently. But nothing really from Keith Butler that I saw on my radar.
Yeah, not much other than he had some nice praise for Sam Darnold and how he's improved and how he's progressing and all. There really wasn't much to kind of take from what he said. He's talked about asked about that 17-point threshold, and he said, look, it wasn't good enough this time. Normally, yeah, but if we don't win the dadgum game, then we gave up too many points, and all. Then obviously he was also talked about is talking about the potential of the defense leading the NFL in sacks for a third straight year, and no team has ever done that. What that means to him, he says, it means nothing to me if we win. Otherwise, it's comfort food. I'm gonna give me some comfort food later on today. You have to win to get into the playoffs. Blah blah blah. He was asked, is that a result of scheme or better players? I think it's always players. You can have any type of scheme you want, and if you don't have the players that execute the scheme, you're not going to be very good anyways. And I think you can rubber stamp that and carry it on over to the offense this year.
Yeah, I appreciate Butler's candor and honesty there, but yeah, I mean, it is crazy. I don't know what the exact numbers are right now, but the Steelers, it's not even close. The margin, they're over second place in terms of sacks since 2017. They've led it obviously the last 2 years, have a good chance to lead it again this year, and again, they're like ahead of the Saints, I think by maybe 25 sacks is the Saints sitting in second place. So the consistent pass rush has been really unique and special for Pittsburgh.
Boy, you got a couple of tackles this week that you should be able to get after again, and who knows what's going to happen at right guard with them and Tom Compton. We'll probably have to wait till later on day, and maybe even into Saturday at game time or Sunday at game time to find out, what's going to happen on them. But man, once again, the Jets have some offensive weapons, sure, but this game really sets up good for that front four of the Steelers.
Yeah, again, no reason to expect they should be able to expect a pass rush. Every reason to expect that. So, okay, Dave, anything else from Butler, Fichtner, or do you want to move on here?
Yeah, I think we can move on. I think, like I said, there wasn't much to scrape from that.
Okay, Dave, let's do this. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and talk to our buddy Andy Vasquez. You can follow him on Twitter at Andy Vasquez, Andy_Vasquez, I should say, writer for The Record and USA Today, covering the Jets. So we'll talk to him and be right back in a moment.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. That means we welcome in a beat writer from the opposing team. And this week the Steelers have the New York Jets in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium. And we are pleased to have a first-timer with us on the show. I'm talking about Andy Vasquez. He writes for the NorthJersey.com, The Record. You can read his work at NorthJersey.com and at USA Today Sports as well, too. You can follow him on Twitter, Andy_Vasquez, VASQUEZ. Andy, welcome to the Terrible Podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on here, kind of late notice here for us. Andy, let's start. I know you're kind of in a hurry. I know Adam Gase is speaking to the media here in about half an hour or so. So let's start with kind of a 30,000 foot overview of the Jets season to date. Obviously, Sam Darnold, missed some of that time with the mono. Came back from that, and really the last few games the Jets have had some success. They obviously ran into a high-powered offense in the Baltimore Ravens, in this last week's game there. But kind of give us a quick overview on the Jets season, and also, do you expect Adam Gase to make it a second season? And then at the tail end of that, comment on Le'Veon Bell and whether or not you think he's going to stick around past this season.
Well, it's been a very interesting year, that's for sure. It's been a struggle for the Jets. Basically, since the first game, they played lights out for the first three quarters against the Bills. And then C.J. Mosley went down with that injury in the third quarter against the Bills opening week. And they've kind of had horrible luck since then. Sam Darnold had the mono. I think that kind of threw off everything for him in terms of his development. And they had a bunch of injuries on the offensive line, and they've just been kind of trying to recover ever since. They've been playing pretty well lately, but it's been against lesser competition that they've had all their wins, winning 4 out of their last 6 games. But it's been a rough year, to be honest with you. This team came in with expectations of contending for a playoff spot. They were essentially out of it in mid-November. I do expect Adam Gase to be back next season just because CEO Christopher Johnson, he kind of staked everything on it. He ran the coaching search himself with Mike Maccagnan. The guy he fired ended up forcing out Mike Maccagnan. And now if he were to move on from Adam Gase after 1 year, it would be basically an admission of failure, and I just don't see him doing that. So, and he said midweek or mid-season that he wasn't going to fire Adam Gase. And it's a pretty rare thing to see a coach, midway through the season, to see an owner in the middle of the season giving a first-year coach a vote of confidence. But it's been a strange season for the Jets with all the stuff that has happened, from Sam Darnold's mono to Jamaal Adams publicly criticizing the team to the strange season for Le'Veon Bell. And that's another thing that's going to hang over the Jets this offseason. He obviously season to be kind of this big weapon for the offense, and he's having the worst season of his career. And it just hasn't seemed to fit or work with Adam Gase. I don't think Le'Veon Bell has taken as big of a step back as maybe. He still has a lot of the skills that he had in Pittsburgh. He's still a very gifted runner. The offensive line is absolute garbage, and he hasn't been a great fit in Adam Gase's offense. And yesterday, Adam Gase was asked a pretty point-blank question: do you see Le'Veon Bell as part of the future? And he wouldn't answer it. He basically said, I don't want to focus on the future. I want to focus on the last two games. And that's not going to quell any of the speculation about Le'Veon Bell's future going forward. I think it's 50-50 that he's back next year. I think there's a chance the Jets try to move him and get something back and move on with running backs that are maybe a better fit for their system. But maybe if he can show something here in the last two games, it could be a blueprint for how it could work next year. So it's kind of an interesting time with the Jets and Le'Veon Bell as he prepares to play Pittsburgh for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned a few injuries. Obviously, Mosley early in the season there. Boy, when you look at their injury report for this week, I think you might even be on the injury report, Andy. But it really kind of deciphering all out. It looks like Tom Compton, their starting right guard, and Demaryius Thomas, obviously wide receiver, are the two guys that are kind of most in jeopardy of missing this game. And really, it doesn't sound like Demaryius Thomas is going to play at all. Compton seems like the biggest question mark. What do you know about the injury standpoint heading on into this game? And if Tom Compton misses, who's going to fill in for him?
Right. Well, I would expect Demaryius Thomas probably won't be in there. Compton, Adam Gase had said earlier in the week that he was saying the right things and seemed to indicate that there might be a chance he plays. If he doesn't play, there's a guy named Connor McDermott, the Jets picked him up off of waivers earlier this season from the Bills. He hasn't played much other than as a kind of subbing in as an extra blocker, but he would come in there probably and fit in at guard. It's just been a crazy season in terms of the injuries for the Jets. Two bigger names that I think they will be getting back this week: Jamaal Adams, after missing the first two games of his career because of an ankle injury. He came back to practice on Wednesday. He's looked basically like his normal self in the parts of practice that are open to us. He says there's a very high chance of him playing, and I would be, unless he suffers some sort of setback today, I would expect him to be out there on Sunday. And Quinnen Williams, who actually played, he's been criticized a lot around here. He hasn't really done much for being a number 3 overall pick, and when you see some of the guys that are drafted behind him, like Josh Allen and Jacksonville racking up big numbers, it's been tough for Jets fans to see. But Williams had the best game of his career, or the best half of his career, against the Dolphins a couple weeks ago, and then hurt his neck, missed the Baltimore game, but he should be back on Sunday as well against the Steelers.
To bring it back to Sam Darnold, Andy, he had that tough start to the year, both with his play and then obviously the mono. But since week 9, he's thrown 12 touchdowns, only 4 picks. What specifically in his game has allowed him to progress over the last 6 weeks of the season? I mean, what have you seen in terms of his progression?
Well, I think while the offensive line still isn't good, and that's going to be a major advantage for the Steelers with their pass rush this weekend, it's been more stable over the last 6 or 7 weeks. They've just given him, with the exception of the Cincinnati game, they've given him a little bit more time to throw, and I think they've been getting the ball out quicker, so that's been a big deal. And he just is more comfortable in the offense, which is to be expected. I mean, he's 22 years old. He's still the second youngest starting quarterback in the league, behind only Kyler Murray in Arizona. I I think people just kind of forget how young he is, and this is only going to be his 25th career game on Sunday. He's in his second offense in as many years. He's just becoming more comfortable in the offense. The thing is, he's still making he only has those 4 interceptions like you mentioned, but when he makes mistakes, they're bad. In Baltimore, it was kind of an inexcusable throw to no one at the end of the first half when they had a chance to score a touchdown and make it a 1-score game and maybe kind of get back in that game, and that ended that. In Miami, it was another interception that just it wasn't a good one. He's been throwing these interceptions that are kind of mind-numbing and make you worry. So, but aside from basically like 1 or 2 throws a game, he looks like he's making progress. There's a lot more good than bad. It's still too early to know. There's still too many moving parts to be like sure that he is the guy, the franchise quarterback they've been looking for so long. But there's a lot of reason to be encouraged, and you're starting to see some real progress for him in Adam Gase's offense. And this is a really good test for him this week against a Steelers defense that is one of the best in the league. He obviously had major problems against the Patriots when they threw the kitchen sink at him back in October with that seeing ghost game.
Yep.
And I think we're going to see how much progress has he made on Sunday.
Well, speaking of defenses, I wanted to flip over to the Jets defense, and I'll be honest, Andy, you got to give me a lot of guesses for who the number 1 run defense in football was. I probably wouldn't have known it was the Jets unless I was looking at the stats. What makes them the number 1 run defense in football, even coming off a week where Baltimore put up 200+ on them as they do to everybody? What makes that front 7 so talented?
Well, I hate to oversimplify, but you have to give Greg Williams a ton of credit with what he's done. And if you look at the rotating door of guys that come in at inside linebacker, I mean, the Jets at one point were down their top 6 inside linebackers. They were starting Brandon Copeland at inside linebacker. He's an outside linebacker, an average outside linebacker at best. But he schemed it up to where they've been able to give other teams problems in the run game. And it's just – and I think the defensive line is more talented than people realize. I think Quinn Williams, even though he hasn't gotten to the quarterback, has done a really good job of fulfilling his assignment and drawing multiple guys on the offensive line, which allows the defense to kind of swarm and get in there. Henry Anderson has done a nice job with that as well. Steve McClendon, former Steeler, has had a very solid season. You wouldn't know he's 33 years old. I mean, he's been very solid. So I think they're very solid up front, and then they play with an edge. They play with an attitude, a kind of prove the world wrong kind of deal, because nobody knows. If you look at a lot of the names on this defense, nobody knows who they are, and they found a way to be with their secondary and their cornerbacks, who, again, there's a good chance that Arthur Mollett and Bless Austin are going to be starting outside this weekend, depending on the health of Brian Poole, if he's in at the slot. I mean, you haven't heard of a lot of these guys, but Greg Williams has been playing at a very high level. And, of course, Jamaal Adams, the Jets bring him down in the box a lot, and he is a guy who causes a lot of problems for defenses, a lot of disruption. They have to worry about him, coming in at the quarterback. He has 6.5 sacks, which is the franchise record for sacks for a defensive back. He's only 1.5 sacks behind the NFL record, a record that Adams says he aims to break. So there's a lot of factors, but I think you have to give the most credit to Greg Williams, who is doing a hell of a job coaching this defense up.
When you look back on the offensive side of the ball, did the Le'Veon Bell side story this week, aside, if you will, do they just need to start trying, especially against this Steelers defense that's good with just 4-man pressures, getting after the quarterback, fairly stout up front? Do they just need to make a more concerted effort to try to get the football in the hands of Le'Veon Bell, more this week, particularly in the passing game? Because, look, Le'Veon, when he, one of the downfalls when Le'Veon was with the Steelers was he wasn't an explosive play producer in the running game. And you look at this year, he only has 2 explosive plays, and both of those have come via the passing game. He's always been good out in space. I see on the tape where they'll go empty at times and line Le'Veon out wide, sort of have the way they did in Pittsburgh, several times as well, too. Should that be the game plan this week? is to get the ball in the hands of Le'Veon Bell as much as possible, and then take your kind of calculated shots down the field to Robbie Anderson and Crowder?
Well, I think absolutely they're going to need to get the ball in his hands in the passing game, and that's something that, quite frankly, Adam Gase has not been able to do well enough. You can say whatever you want about Le'Veon Bell, but he still has a lot of talent, and Gase has not been able to maximize that and consistently get him involved in the passing game, and I think that's a big failure of his in this first year. What I would expect to see is Bilal Powell is going to get a lot of carries, maybe some of the more outside carries, something the Jets have failed to do, establishing the run outside of the tackles this year. I would expect them to try to kind of establish the run with Le'Veon on the inside, Powell kind of spelling him on the outside, and then, I think you're going to see Le'Veon lining up in the slot or coming out of the backfield and them trying to get him involved that way, because he's still a very gifted receiver. He can run all the routes. The Jets are thin at receiver right now with Thomas out. And I think that's an accurate assessment. I think they need to find a way to get him involved in some quick hitting plays to kind of loosen things up and let Robbie Anderson get down the field. And I will also say this, Anderson has done a much better job in recent weeks of being a more versatile receiver. And I think you might see him on some shorter crossing routes or some shorter routes, getting him a little bit of space to catch the ball while running. And when he does that, that guy is fast, man, and he can really do some damage in the defense.
Yeah, I've always thought Robbie Anderson been a little bit underrated, and boy, you just go back to this game against the Ravens this past week. Boy, that finger tap, he's got strong hands, man, and he catches that ball out in front of him, really impressive, and obviously can stretch the field. Ryan Griffin, I don't like to talk too much about players that aren't playing, but they lost Ryan Griffin, their tight end, to an ankle injury here just recently, and he looked like he was having a pretty good season. Obviously, 5 touchdowns on top of it on an offense that's really not putting up a lot of points. How big a hit was that, losing him?
It was a big hit, and I mean, when you look at how few weapons the Jets have, I mean, their receivers this weekend are going to be Robbie Anderson, Jameson, Crowder, and then a guy named Vincent Smith, which you probably haven't heard of, but he's a promising young guy. So there's not like there's a lot of weapons there, and he had found very good chemistry with Darnold. They're going to miss him for sure, but they kind of have done a good job of plugging guys in, and I would expect Bell to kind of pick up some of that in the receiving game. Daniel Brown has a touchdown this year. He'll get a couple opportunities out there. And, I think they're going to fill in and they feel like they have a lot of interchangeable parts that they can plug in, but I don't think they have another tight end that they can plug in. And where I think they're really going to hurt losing Griffin, especially this week, is in the blocking game. He had done a really nice job, and they could trust him as a blocker. And Brown is not that good of a blocker. So another advantage for a Steelers pass rush that probably doesn't need any more help against this offensive line.
You mentioned Greg Williams earlier and the job he's done with getting the next man up and stellar run defense. I know a hallmark for Williams is, blitzing and getting after the quarterback. Is it fair to say you expect him to turn up the heat against Duck Hodges this weekend? And how do you expect him to attack the Steelers pass rush or pass protection and just passing game overall?
Well, I would say if you look back to that stretch of games against the Giants and Redskins where Jamaal Adams was given kind of free reign to get after the quarterback, I think you're going to see that this weekend for a couple reasons. They're going to want to put pressure on Hodges just because he's a younger quarterback, and Williams loves throwing strange looks at younger quarterbacks and trying to confuse them. So bringing Adams is he's been their best pass rusher this year. So I would expect him to be involved in the blitz game for sure. And because Adams has a lot of motivation to break that sack record after missing the last 2 games, he's excited to get back there. So I think he's going to be a big factor. And I would watch out for another name you might not know about if you haven't followed the Jets closely, Jordan Jenkins, their outside linebacker. Right. He has done a really nice job of getting after the quarterback this year. And I think he'll be a factor in the blitz game as well. But yeah, I would expect a lot of unconventional looks, and I would expect them to show blitz a lot of times and drop back into coverage just because that's what Greg Williams does. He's going to bring pressure from different places and try to confuse, offenses, especially when he's got a young quarterback on the other side.
Real quick, Andy, is Jamaal Adams going to be a Jet in 2020? I know there were trade rumors this year. Again, you said earlier he was critical of the team. Is he going to be a Jet next year, or are they going to move him this offseason?
I think that is one of the more interesting stories of the offseason. And to be honest with you, I don't know. Should he be a Jet next season? I think he should, just because he's the kind of guy you want in the locker room. He's first of all, he's a great emotional leader. He talks a lot, but he totally backs it up. The guy is 100% in practice. He shows up and plays his behind off every single game. And it's just that consistency is not something you get from that young of a superstar player all the time. And he's there and then he's a very good player who has shown that he can be used multiple ways. So I think they should keep him. But I think when you have as many holes as this team does, he's their only Pro Bowler. He's the only guy there that you're 100% is going to be there for the defense next season in terms of going to be like that established player. I think he just means so much to the team that unless they can get an insane package back, I don't think they should move him. And I don't think they will, but I think, there is a chance just because what happened at the trade deadline with him being unhappy with the team. I don't know if that's going to come back when he's eligible for an extension this season. I don't know if he's going to demand one and maybe take a hard line on that. And there's a chance maybe he doesn't want to be here long term. That's hard to say. So that's a very interesting question going forward.
As good as that defense has been against the run, it does seem that teams have been able to get them outside on the edge at times. Have teams had success? I've watched only just a couple of games. Have teams had success running some power against them on the outside, getting those guards on the move?
Not occasionally, yes. It's not been consistent, but they're very much more prone to giving up a big run on the outside. Obviously, last week was a whole different ball game, and Jackson torched them on the outside. I mean, but he's torching everybody. So I think they're definitely more vulnerable on the outside, but it hasn't been – no team has been able to consistently do that. I mean, they've not even Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, no one's been able to consistently break plays to the outsides of them. So, but yes, I think they are more vulnerable to a big play out there. Winding you down here. Do you have a prediction for us? Score prediction? We always try to get one from our beat writers as we close them out here. What do you see transpiring there Friday in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium? Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a defensive struggle. I think the Steelers are going to prevail. I'm going to say Steelers 21, Jets 14.
All right, if you had to,
and I
go
think
ahead.
It's going to be an interesting game, but I think it's going to be a competitive game. But I think in the end, it's going to be too hard for the Jets offense to get moving, and I think the Steelers are going to force a big turnover and get the win.
And if you had to guess right now, what position would be the greatest area need for them in the first round of next year's draft? I know it's early; we won't hold you to it, but which way is that team probably going to be leaning in the first round?
Oh, it's no doubt. An offensive line. There's a chance they only bring back one of the four guys who are starting right now, and a slight chance that none of them are back. So they need offensive line help badly. Under Mike McCagnon, they didn't take an offensive lineman. They took one offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds, and it was this year. So their offensive line is a mess. It needs help. And Joe Douglas, an offensive-minded guy, I expect him to go out and take multiple offensive linemen in the draft, including in the first round.
Andy, we certainly do appreciate your time. Tell everybody where they can find you. Give them the rundown of where all they can find you online, and throw out your Twitter handle one more time.
Yeah, it's you can find my work at northjersey.com and at USA Today Sports occasionally.com. You can find me there, and my Twitter is Andy_Vasquez.
All right, fantastic. Andy, we appreciate having you as a first-timer on a Terrible podcast and look forward to doing it with you again down the road sometime.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
All right.
Have the opportunity.
All right, have a good day. Thank you.
And again, our special thanks to Andy Vasquez. You can follow him at Andy_Vasquez, VASQUEZ. Again, following the Jets on the beat for USA Today and the newspaper The Record. Dave, good stuff from Andy. Appreciate him taking his time.
Yeah, and a little bit on short notice too. I didn't get a hold of him till kind of later Thursday evening, and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it," and got him on first thing this morning. So kudos to him. Hey, hop on the Twitter machine and follow him and reach out and thank him. Obviously the Steelers, don't play the Jets, every year generally, unless they match up with them. On that rotating schedule because of out of one of those 2 games a year that kind of undecided there. But always good to have these guys in the Rolodex, a guy that you can say, hey, we want this guy, and the way the way you can help us make sure we have these guys, not normal opponents of the Steelers, is thanking them on Twitter and letting them know they're heard and following them and reading their work online as well too. A lot of you are great at that. We appreciate it, but it takes 2 seconds, especially if you're not on Twitter, obviously you can't do that. But if you are, just reach out to them and thank them.
Yeah, because the life of working the beat is a tough job. I think Andy was on the way to Adam Gase's press conference, and so again, taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to us, we certainly appreciate it. Okay, Dave, let's move on now to the Jets and our preview of the game, and starting with the Jets offense. I think the big point with the team overall is that they're playing much better as of late. I know you can look at their record and their standing in the AFC and say, it should be a very winnable game. But this team's been playing well lately, granted against some lesser competition that Andy referenced in the interview a moment ago. But I think it's a team that similar to Arizona, for example, is probably better than what their record might indicate.
Yeah, they're playing. You look at that game against the Ravens. They got jumped on. A lot of teams are getting jumped on by them. They're not built, I don't think, the kind of that play behind score, outscore you 40 to 30 kind of team. However, when they get into non-offensive juggernauts, if you will, I think they can hang around there. And with them, obviously, it starts with a running game and Le'Veon Bell, and they run a lot of the same stuff that they ran offensively when what the Steelers did when he was in Pittsburgh, and he's just not having that same kind of success. However, now the successful run rates that Le'Veon Bell has had over the years in Pittsburgh really haven't been all that great. He's had yardage, he's had touches, and all like that. But I think when you look at a play-by-play run success rate with Le'Veon Bell over the last couple years, it's not top of the league. Okay, it's more along the lines of that 46, 47%. I don't have the numbers in front of me there, but they are really kind of struggling up front with that line and trying to get him a lot of running room. Now, not surprisingly with Le'Veon Bell, no explosive runs this year. And if there's one thing that I always pointed to with Le'Veon Bell when he was with Pittsburgh is where the explosive runs. He just wasn't a big explosive. He wasn't a 20-yard producer on the ground with the Steelers, and he hasn't been with them. I think he's got 2 explosive plays so far this season. Both of them were receptions. For obviously more than 20 yards there. Now they'll do a lot of the same things with him that the Steelers. They'll run that zone concepts up front for him. They'll obviously run the counters and then get the guards on the move at times with him as well too. Now they are missing Ryan Griffin now, a tight end of theirs, so they're having to make do with that. They'll run a couple tight. They'll run some heavy packages there, but they're not afraid to spread people out either. I think that's one of the things that stuck out to me, especially when watching the Miami Dolphins game, that tape, is they'll come out and they'll spread you out with 11 personnel, and they'll try to do what they try to do out of that to try to create a little bit more space for them. And obviously, and they probably haven't done it enough for them anyway, is probably need to use them a little bit more out in the passing game, because that you get him out on space one-on-one, get him on one of those option routes or whatnot against the linebacker. That's how he can win. So I think it starts with him overall with Le'Veon Bell. So you're obviously going to be keyed on shutting down the run first. But boy, they got some receivers that can do some damage on you, don't they?
They do. Robbie Anderson and Jameson Crowder. I think it's actually pretty similar to what the Steelers were facing last week in Buffalo. I kind of compare Cole Beasley to Jameson Crowder as kind of their underneath, high volume, third down type of guy, and Anderson as their John Brown, their vertical threat.
Yeah, look, one thing that sticks out about Robbie Anderson, I've always kind of he's kind of that guy too. You kind of want on your fantasy team because he can explosive play for you as well too. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me in that Ravens game is, look, the Jets are out of this thing. They've been out of this thing for a couple weeks. We know that, but a lot of strong, nice effort from both Crowder and Robbie Anderson in that game against the Ravens. And Robbie's got strong hands. We see him do some stuff in the middle of the field. And once again, and we talked about, I think at the top of the show there, he's got some speed. He can jump on the outside and get on top of a corner in a heartbeat. And we saw how Crowder was kind of used against the Ravens as well too. And he's a guy that's a good red zone target as well too. Now, it doesn't sound like they're going to have Demaryius Thomas, who obviously kind of a nice red zone threat, if you will. In fact, I think he was injured on that kind of goal line pass against the Dolphins. I don't think he's played since then there. So obviously, once you get past their top two wide receivers, it's really a threesome over there. It's Bell, it's Crowder, and it's Robbie Anderson, because they've lost their tight end in Hewitt. Now, a couple things that I think that stuck out is I like the way they use some of that misdirection stuff. We get the line going one way, boot Sam Darnold out the other way to hit kind of maybe a Crowder coming misdirection behind the line of scrimmage the other way. They're seeing them do that. Obviously, we could do that with a tight end. A couple of quick square outs off the line from a nub tight end. They'll do that as well too. So one of the big focal points for them, I think, when it comes offensively and Sam Darnold against the Steelers defense, is trying to get the ball out of Sam Darnold's hands quick.
Yeah, I just think overall, I talked to Andy about and asked him, what has been the key to Darnold's progression, and I really think the offense is just making life easy on Sam Darnold. It's a lot of triangle reads, a lot of easy progression reads, half-field reads, where he's able to kind of see everything in his line of sight at once and just, picks apart his own defense. So I think you're going to have to play a lot more man coverage to help avoid some of these spacing concepts that can exploit and kind of flood and overload some of his own defenses that teams might want to run. And they'll try to go deep too. Obviously, they get single high looks the same way that, when Josh Allen got single high looks with John Brown last week, he was throwing deep balls to him. They'll do the same with Robbie Anderson. So I think you want to see a lot of two-man, especially on third and long. None of this spot drop cover 2 on 3rd and 7+ that Keith Butler liked to use last week. You're not facing nearly as mobile of a quarterback, so you can play more man coverage and feel more comfortable about that and not worry about the threat of Sam Darnold taking off the way that you did Josh Allen. So the offense for New York is just set up to, I think, make life easy on Sam Darnold. And obviously, if you're Pittsburgh, you got to make life pretty difficult on him this weekend.
Yeah, they're more along the lines too of 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. If you gain 3 yards on every play, you're going to be fine overall.
It's just an easy system. I mean, you're just talking Hank spacing concepts, Y sticks, some play action, some boots you mentioned, sail concepts. I mean, just easy stuff for Darnold to be able to make a really quick, decisive read without having to go to the left side and right side. I mean, they're half field progressions most of the time. You got to make life tough on this kid.
And as you mentioned, I think, and also one thing that stuck out against the Dolphins there is, if you get them, if you want to play a lot of man, if you want to play the single high there, they'll definitely take their chances to throw the football up down the field. Look, I think they've had a couple of drops the last couple of weeks as well too. I think that offense could have been a little bit even more. A little bit more efficient, if not for a couple of drops in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but there's a lot of talent. I mean, Crowder's always been, I think a pretty dependable, reliable slot receiver. Was that guy in Washington? I think doing the same with the Jets, and Anderson's a guy that can change the course of a game in a heartbeat. The other thing I would mention for the Jets offense is watch out for the trick play. It's end of season. You got nothing to lose at this point. If the Jets can create a big play, a turnover on downs, or a big pass play that gets them 20, 30 yards, and they're sitting about midfield, between midfield and Pittsburgh's 40-yard line, watch out for a trick play, a running back or receiver pass, because it's on tape.
Look, Kelvin Beecham and Brandon Shell, they're probably not going to sleep too well Saturday night overall. And then obviously it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tom Compton there at right guard. once again, who do you like better? I've liked Shell. I
He's
guess
been
what
in the
I'm
league for a while.
I guess I'm asking is who has the better matchup here? Bud Dupree versus Kelvin Beecham or T.J. Watt? Well, T.J. Watt versus probably anybody, but
Yeah, really, I think I like the matchup regardless of who the opponent is. But certainly in this matchup, I think it's winnable for both guys. I mean, Beecham obviously a former Steeler, a talented player. I think his career's getting towards the end of this thing. But both guys, I think anywhere up front, whether you're talking interior or on the edges, the Steelers can win those matchups.
If they learned anything from Buffalo offensively, it's probably to maybe get them tight ends busy on the end to help them tackles out, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a video on this a little bit later today or maybe for Saturday that kind of talks about how Buffalo slowed down the Steelers' pass rush. They did a great job of chipping, alignments, forcing these guys to align wide, coming out in heavier personnel and, forcing these linebackers to be walked out of the box and have to cover up in some of these twin sets that the Buffalo like to use. So I think the Bills laid out as good a blueprint as possible for how to slow down Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt. But when these guys get their one-on-one opportunities to get after the quarterback, they're going to win more than most guys in the league.
Yeah, they'll run some mesh over the middle. They'll try to pick you off on. They're probably a little bit underrated and probably don't do enough of trying to find that one guy. All of what New England does. Know that you're going to get probably a certain guy picked off. But I saw a little bit of that against the Dolphins as well too. Sam seems like he's getting a little bit more comfortable throwing more towards the middle of the field in that 12-yard kind of category, especially with some of those spot routes, and all like that. You don't see him, I don't think, throwing as much of a concerted effort, of trying to stay, more towards the numbers, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing I would notice or note for this Jets offense is their divide routes. They love these post-wheel, curl-wheel concepts where they're going to try to get these guys in conflict and a couple double moves and put these safeties in tough spots to try to play, depth and divider. So if you're Pittsburgh, I think you play a lot of man coverage, alert the post-wheel combination because they're going to try to flood zone coverage. I think it'll play pretty man-heavy in this one because the Jets, with some of their half-field reads they want to use, their bunch sets, and then trying to flood defenses with these post-wheel looks. I think if you're trying to play cover 3, you're probably going to get in trouble and put these corners and safeties in a tough spot. So I think a man-heavy defense is probably the way to go this weekend.
Yeah, if they use their tight ends correctly as well too. If you get into, like we saw against Buffalo, some of those zone situations there. And give the quarterback time, with Crowder and Anderson. He'll probably find them.
Yep, for sure. He's playing well, so you got to make life tough on him.
They will try, some of these wide, a couple of those wide, obviously not having Griffin hurts them, but I wouldn't be surprised to try to see them try to sneak a tight end, second level across on them. The thing is I don't think I think one of them was I think they drew a penalty or two against Miami. I think it was. I was looking at there, but and Darnold missed I think a throw on another one there. So they will try to get, even though they lost Ryan Griffin, I think they're going to try to get their tight ends involved a little bit here, especially on those. Put them if they get them in a man type situation, they'll release that tight end, 6-7 yard out, kind of a square out there, a real quick, easy read, 4 yards minimum, and if you break a tackle, 11 yards,
Yep, the old Y stick. So that's the Jets offense. Flip over to their defense again. Like I told Andy, I was surprised to hear the Jets have the number 1 run defense in football, but their physical group, they're just a tough, annoying group to deal with top to bottom. I mean, this is an intense group, and as Andy said, it's not with a lot of names on this team. A lot of these guys are, you're going to be sitting on your TV going, who are these guys, especially linebacker, especially at corner. But overall, this defense, I think, has done about as well as you can hope and expect based on all the injuries and all the adversity they've had to deal with.
Obviously, the sack numbers are not there for them. I mean, heck, you got, what do we say, Jenkins has 7.
Yeah, they have 30 as a team.
And then Adams is your next with like 6.5 or whatever he's got there. While they don't have the sack numbers, I got the feeling, though, that they do a fairly decent job pressure-wise.
Let me look at what their pressure rate was that I wrote in my report. I think it was a little bit lower than what I anticipated,
and especially up the middle. Especially when Williams has been healthy. Obviously, boy, how's McClendon keep doing it, man?
All right, is he really 33?
Golly,
God,
we'll find out what that man's drinking.
All right, somebody said could he come to Pittsburgh next year, and I said 30-year-old defenders, but the history there. But man, this guy's playing really well.
Look, here's the thing in that over 30 rule when it comes to Pittsburgh and defensive players and free agency. The only way it gets overridden is if the players played for them before.
Yeah, right.
Not saying that's going to happen. And look, we've obviously talked about Billings, and there's probably going to be another one or two of them out there. Maybe
Michael Pierce in Baltimore. Someone mentioned that. It's a good name to mention.
Yeah, but look, if you can't get one of those guys, well, here's the problem: is that Steve McClendon's still going to probably command a pretty decent. He's not going to break the bank, obviously. In other words, I don't think you're going to get him for one of those veteran minimum salary benefit contracts here. It'd be nice if you could, but boy, I mean, long story short, he's playing very, very well. I mean, he can still he can still win up the middle and swim over and he's strong as a damn ox too, man. When it comes to him. But, back when, obviously, Quentin Williams has had his issues, but he's got some cat-like, quickness as well, too. The thing that really stuck out to me, Alex, and especially in the game against the Dolphins, was it felt like they were still able to get pressure in not blitzing situations up the middle in just regular four-man rushes.
The Jets you're talking about, yeah. They have a better pass rush than probably what they've had in past years, especially now they kind of have a guy in Jenkins. I mean, they've struggled for so long trying to draft some top edge rushers. I mean, I go back to the Vernon Golston days of trying to find edge guys. It feels like they've been trying to find a defined player for the longest time. But I think obviously they scheme it well. As I said at the top, Greg Williams is certainly going to test and stress the Steelers' protections. They do a lot of nickel blitzes. If the back's lined away, you got to watch out for the nickel blitz from the other side because they're going to try to attack that. If you're an empty, they're certainly going to try to stress you with some nickel pressure and hope the line doesn't recognize it and can't pick it up. And then, of course, Jamaal Adams was 6.5 sacks, which is an absurd number. He's going to return this week. He's by far their best player. I think it would be dumb to trade him in the offseason. He's maybe the best player in the entire team, but certainly the defense. So they're going to bring a variety of looks and pressure where, again, Pittsburgh better have a lot more answers to how they block up blitzes and how they defend it than they did last week against the Bills.
Yeah, you better have options and checks so you can get the ball out quick. Wide receivers got to be able to try to read. You got
to have some built-in hot reads at least. If you can't block it up or you have the risk of not being able to block it up, I mean, you got to have some defined hot reads for this offense.
It seems like those linebackers and or safety and Adam always coming forward. So man, how about a little bit of play action? Try to get those guys kind of frozen a little bit. Seems like they've had a few issues at times with that. And look, I think that Neville Hewitt is he's better than what I thought he was. I mean,
he's got 2 picks, only got on that defense more than 1 interception.
Right, but the thing is, sometimes they'll leave him in situations that are not. Keith Butler's entered the chat.
What do you mean by that?
Don't have him run with some people that he has no business running with. In fact, in that Baltimore game, they asked him to run with Hollywood Marquise Brown. So if you can get someone lined up on him that and they don't match it up properly.
Right.
I think that they do like to put him on an island. Now, obviously, too, they'll run probably some cover 2 Tampa.
They run a ton of Tampa 2 on early downs.
Tampa 2 stuff. So middle of and I think you kind of hinted early on in the show. You got Vance McDonald back now, and you're probably going to be running quite a few heavy looks in this game as well too. Man, can't you get somebody up running down the middle there?
Yeah, the problem with McDonald is that he just does not seem like the same guy. I mean, I don't know if he's dealing with an injury that he's just pushing through, if it's kind of the culmination of all the injuries he's had in his career. But there's been no burst, been very little after the catch. He's, the drops have still been there as a blocker. It's been tough. So I mean, yeah, this was last year. I'd be saying this is a matchup to exploit. Attack them down the seams with Vance. But I mean, he just doesn't seem like he has the juice this year. So hopefully Juju can do it. Maybe you get a random matchup where you get Juju on Hewitt or a linebacker or some sort of advantageous matchup. But the Jets run a lot of cover 2, a lot of Tampa 2 on early downs. I think that's something that this team can exploit.
And they'll drop those outside linebackers.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not a lot, but I mean, they'll do it.
If they're going to run their nickel pressure, they usually drop the away side linebacker.
Let's see, secondary outside of Jamaal Adams. This is a team that could probably be, if you get them, if you know that you could get them in some single high, you're gonna be able to take some chances against them, I think.
Yeah, again, the name value here is not great, as Andy mentioned. I mean, I honestly haven't even heard of some of these guys. Who was some of the names?
Well, you know Marcus May. I mean, he's the Florida kid, right?
Yeah, I've been talking like Bless on Austin. Like, who is that? Darryl Roberts, I do know. He's a physical guy. He's played some safety for him. He's a hard hitter. But yeah, I mean, there's some names in here that again, most fans are going to go, who are these guys? But they're playing well. It's not that they're bad players. They're just unknown guys.
And circling back to Greg Williams type defenses, they're physical. One thing that stuck out: if you catch a ball over the middle or in the middle of the field, they're going to hit you.
Did you see that one play? I think it was Roberts.
The tight end. Yeah. It was. But I mean, that wide receiver bounced right up, didn't he?
He got it. Yeah.
But he got that was, I think that was red zone too,
it was around the 10-yard line.
Yeah, so that was definitely a kind of play there. Now, also, once you get in the red zone against them, all bets are off because I think I saw some zero in there. I mean, he's not afraid to match his guys up against your guys and send a couple after your quarterback. So, but then again, he'll show something to look like that, and then he'll only rush 3 in this situation as well too, and drop 8. So, it's a smorgasbord, if you will, of calls with him, but he is not opposed to running to zero.
Yeah, and it's just on the box score. They've allowed 22 or fewer points in 4 of their last 5 games. So, I mean, they're doing a good job of being able to keep the score down. They're not particularly great on third down or in the red zone when it comes to their defense, but it's not terrible either. And again, they just play really stout run defense. They've only missed 80 tackles all year long. That's 4th fewest in football. I think that's probably the reason why their run defense is so strong, why they're only allowing 3.3 yards per carry to the opponent. So I think if there's a way to try to run on them, I think you're probably going to go more perimeter than you're going to go up the middle because they're stout up front. They're aggressive with some of their linebacker, A-gap blitzes. And plus, sometimes they just kind of screw themselves with the alignment. They like to align inside. If you have a tight end, sometimes they'll align the D-end inside shade on the tight end, which helps soften up the edges. So try to run on the perimeter with some of the power, maybe a little bit the counter, some of the toss stuff that we've seen a little bit in the past in Pittsburgh. But if you're going to try to attack the Jets, run game probably on the outside more than it is up the gut.
Yeah, they forget about the crack toss since New England or what?
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe get Juju back. I think maybe when you didn't have Juju in the slot, maybe it hurts you a little bit, but you did have Tevin Jones and Washington, some bigger bodies, but maybe Juju can get on these linebackers a little bit.
That's another thing. I think even going back to maybe, what was it, the second meeting against I just thought we'd see more instances because we've seen some of these teams get beat on the edges like that with being unable to crack and replace and stuff like that. So I think you're beating your head up against a brick wall if you try to run too much between the guards. Because man, McClendon just so and look, there are like I said, those linebackers always seem to be working downhill. They run blitz quite a bit, at least from what I saw. They're not afraid to be up in those gaps, and they seem pretty the gap integrity and people not trying to do too much. I mean, they seem very sound between the A gaps and all like that. So we keep talking about running the power and getting David DeCastro on the move, and I know you can't. I say you can't do it 15 times a game, but I damn sure would like to see a game where they try it. But I think you can do some stuff out on the edge. That's how they've been beat so far with non-Lamar Jackson runs, if you will. Now, I haven't looked at one thing I wanted to do, but I didn't get it done. I wanted to look at their overall kind of success rates Now obviously they're 31st in the league, I think, in average yards on the ground per game. Now,
in defense.
Yeah.
In terms of
rushing yards per game allowed.
As in the second best, or like what do you mean by 31st?
Second best.
Okay. When you said 31st, I thought you meant like they were second worst. You mean second?
No,
okay,
no.
gotcha.
I mean second best. With 77, I think 77 yards per game they're averaging, giving up on the ground, which obviously isn't a lot at all. And it's not like they've been in blowout games where teams have had to get away from. I'm looking at the sorted thing. I say 31st because I have it sorted least, and they're second to the bottom. So
right. I think it's 88 yards per game they've given up, but that was after 200 plus against Baltimore last week.
Let me look at it again real quick here.
It's a good group. 3.3 yards per carry. Again, they don't miss tackles. I'm no fan of Greg Williams, for the whole bounty gate and off the field stuff. But they're a well coached team. They got a lot of guys on injured reserve. They got 18 guys on IR, so they're still playing competitive football despite all the injuries.
77.6 yards per game on the ground.
All right, look at you. Good job.
They are best in the league at 3.35 yards per play on the ground. Let's see what they are passing wise here. The Jets, where are you? 196, almost 197 yards per game passing, which is what, fourth best? No, wait. That's no, I'm looking at the wrong
side. Sounds low.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the wrong side here. I'm sorry. I'm looking at offense. No wonder.
Yeah. I was going to say.
No wonder I was messed up here. 88 point. You were right. 88.8 yards per game on the ground there, and 3.34 yards. I didn't, for some reason, just flip back over to offense here. So they're just as they're about as good defensively, opposite of what they are offensively.
Right. Yeah, because Bell's only averaging 3.3. I mean, he's basically averaging the bulk of that. So, yeah, I mean, again, defensively they're stout. Offensively, they're better than maybe what their record indicates. Still a winnable matchup. Obviously, the Steelers' defense is better on paper than the Jets' offense, but I don't want to assume this is going to be just an easy walk in the park, because it most certainly will not.
Exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, this is a team in a close game situation like that. They're built for this.
Mm-hmm. Have they played a lot of close games this year? Do you have a weekly result for them? I'm just curious if they played a lot of close games, what their success in those games is.
I'll tell you the scores here in a minute. Obviously, the game against the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, so they beat Miami by 1 2 weeks ago.
Buffalo's 17-16 loss in Week 1, 23-3 to Cleveland. Of course, New England took it to them pretty good. The ghost game.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia 31-6 loss. They beat the Cowboys, of course, 24-22. Patriots got them again. The 33-0 game was the ghost game, I think.
Yeah, well, a lot of these were when Darnold was out,
right,
and stuff.
But look, they ran through that stretch there. Giants, Redskins, and Raiders. Scored 34 points in each of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins 22-21, won a nice close one there. That was the one I watched the most tape on ahead of this. Now, I don't know what happened against the Bengals. I just got through like the first quarter of that one.
Mm-hmm. I hate whenever I have to watch Baltimore tape, because it's just so tough to gauge what teams can do against Baltimore.
I watched, I didn't. I mean,
that's probably
other than the highlights. I don't. Look, the game was on Thursday night, so I got to see it. So I didn't spend a lot of time on it, because you got to throw the Lamar Jackson. And look, I mean, you get behind, you're not going to do some of the things offensively that you would normally do. You're going to get off schedule and all like that. So other than looking back at the highlights at that Baltimore game, I didn't spend any time on it. I focused mainly on the Miami and a little bit on both the Cincinnati and the Raiders game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyways, I have not been in a ton of close games this year, but a team on the rise again.
No, I'm just saying they're built to play.
Yeah.
Right. in close games.
Sure, sure. No, I agree. They're a physical group, and again, they've been playing better as of late. So anything else you wanted to add for the Jets, offense, defense? It's not a whole lot in special teams, and they got a little bit of threat at kick return game, but nothing too notable.
No, other than that defense worries you.
It does, Dave. Okay, before we get to our previews for week 16, already, I can't believe it, Dave. Let's talk about our friends over at MyBookie.
Yeah, are you the type of fan that knows football so well that you could choose any game and call it? Well, MyBookie is the place for you because they let you turn all of your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Between football season, NBA, and the start of college basketball, I guess we're beyond the start of college basketball season now, aren't we? We're into college
There's
basketball.
been a ton of upsets this year.
It's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy or girl who likes to bet a little and win a lot, try one of their parlays. For instance, if you like a couple of the big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. So, if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag because no one gives you more ways to win. Tired of watching the games from the couch with nothing to gain? MyBookie wants to get your mind off everything else and back on the game. If you join right now, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. Enter promo code TERRIBLE to activate the offer. Once again, that's promo code TERRIBLE at mybookie.ag to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, Dave, let's get to our picks for Week 16.
Feels weird not having any football. I guess that's a sign things are starting to wind down here when you get to the Thursday.
You got a Saturday slate this week, right?
Yeah, we got 3 games on Saturday. Rams at San Francisco we'll start with. San Francisco at home. Boy, would you have thought that that had been such before the start of the season? If I would have told you San Francisco was favored by 7 in this game, you probably thought I was out of my mind. Anyway, San Francisco at home, favored by 7 against the Rams.
I think they get Richard Sherman back this week, so I'm going to go with the 49ers. But the Rams, I can't figure that group out, so I'm going to go with the 49ers.
I will go with the Rams in this one to keep it somewhat, hopefully, close for them. Buffalo Bills at the Patriots. Who are we'll find out. We'll go and find out who the Bills are this week, I think. Even so, the Patriots, as much problems as they've had on offense, they're still the 3rd highest scoring team.
Really? Well, how many of those are defensive touchdowns, I feel like?
Well,
yeah.
Anyway, New England at home, looking to show Buffalo that they're still the boss, laying 6.5.
I think Buffalo's going to keep this really close. I think Steelers fans obviously saw how good that team is, schematically, and then of course personnel-wise, they got a great defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. So I don't know if Buffalo wins. I think it's possible, but I think they at least cover.
I'm going to go Patriots to cover this one. I got to start.
Yeah, you got some catching up to do.
I got a little bit of don't rub it in there. But I got a little bit of catching up to do here. So give me New England to cover this one at home. The other one that maybe a few Steelers fans will have their eye on, maybe not. Houston Texans at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay at home +3. Houston. Can they can lock it up this week?
Yeah, if they win the South, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so are Steeler fans rooting for? Who do you root for? Do you root for Tampa to make it competitive in Week 17? Do you root for Houston? I guess you root for the Bucs this week if you're.
I guess because of the one, maybe a couple scenarios in there. In the grand scheme of things, hopefully it doesn't come down to it. But I think you probably rooting for Tampa Bay, just for the sheer fact that I think you want to just make sure Houston has something to play for. Right. Whether it be seeding, and look, they could maybe, I think, still win. Houston can win and still possibly be playing for a better seed. Depending on what all transpires this week. So, I guess it depends on what side of the fence you want to kind of stand on this one. Regardless, Tampa Bay +3.
Yeah. I think Jameson has got that thumb issue. He's questionable, probably going to play. He's just too risky for my taste. I'm going to go with Houston.
Yeah, and boy, the wide receivers are just all banged up in Tampa as well, too. This feels like easy money here. Give me Texans -3 on the road. Detroit Lions at the Denver Broncos. Denver laying 7 at home.
A game I will not be watching. I think Locke bounces back though, and I'm gonna go with Detroit.
What you said? You think Locke? What?
Oh, I said Detroit. I can't talk today. Yeah, I meant Denver. I'm gonna go with Locke bouncing back, and I'm gonna go with Denver.
All right, I'll go with Patricia keeping this one within. This one has push written all over, to be honest with you. 7-point spread on this, but give me the Lions plus the 7 there. I got to try to stay opposite you on a few of these. Oakland Raiders at the Chargers, another really kind of who cares game. Chargers at home, laying 7.
I'm going to say Oakland covers. They get Josh Jacobs back, and the Chargers, they always find a way to charger it up. So give me Gruden in the game.
I'm going to go the opposite way on this one than you on this one as well, too. Phillip Rivers is going to have probably his best game of the season. Probably not hard to do, but give me Phillip Rivers laying the 7 on this one. Jacksonville at Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta laying 7.5. Tom Coughlin out in Jacksonville.
What a mess Jacksonville's been. Questions at quarterback, obviously questions with the coaching staff and front office. Atlanta's been playing a lot better ball lately. Falcons, I think, are going to win big in this one.
Wow. Yeah, I hate to say that I'm going to go with you on this one, but I am. 7.5. Boy, I sure wish that was like 6.5. But regardless, give me the Falcons laying the 7.5 there at home. New Orleans Saints at Tennessee Titans. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, this is one of those games that maybe really, there are some scenarios where if it push came to shove, you'd probably want you would care and want the Saints to win this one. Regardless, Saints on the road. Boy, Drew Brees, man, that guy? 40 is a new 30, right?
And one incompletion last week.
Golly, and Sean Payton said he got a negative grade on that play.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go. I think New Orleans is going to win, but I don't know how much it's going to help Pittsburgh for Tennessee losing, but it certainly can't hurt. So I'm going to be a Bucs fan and a Saints fan, so go NFC South, and that's the game plan this week.
Yeah, give me the Saints -3 in this one as well, too. New York Giants at the Washington Redskins. Redskins at home laying 1.5.
I don't know. You pick this one first because I really don't know. Also, by the way, with the Saints, how about Michael Thomas? That dude's having one of the best seasons ever for a receiver. I don't think that does not get talked about enough in national circles.
Man, once again, a guy that you know is going to have the coverage on him, but always finds a way. Drew Brees ain't afraid to throw to him. That guy's got – you want to talk about a guy that's got some hands that can catch anything, almost anything thrown his way. Really, really impressive young wide receiver.
Yeah. What's your pick for this one?
Give me the Fighting Eli. Is Eli going to start this one again?
I'm not sure. I think Daniel Jones is back practicing. I don't know if they've declared a starter. My guess is it's going to be Daniel Jones. I'll go with the Giants though.
All right, well, I'll go the other way then. Give me the Redskins late
I should have let you pick first.
Late 1.5 there. Cincinnati on the road against Miami. This is a pick 'em, so pick 'em.
I'd rather not. I'm not going to watch this one, I'll tell you that. I don't know. I guess give me the Dolphins, but I don't know.
Yeah, since I can't see Cincinnati, they don't want to mess up a good thing right now, do they?
No. Thank you.
Even if it's close, give me Miami and to pick them here. I don't know. Is both teams going to be trying to lose this one?
Right.
Carolina Panthers at Indianapolis Colts. Colts laying in 6.5. What happened to Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, I mean, you got Brissett versus Will Grier making his NFL debut after Kyle Allen's doing 1 million picks. I know Brissett hasn't played particularly well, but against a rookie quarterback making his first start, give me the Colts.
Yeah, it's gonna be I'm with you. Give me the Colts late at 6.5.
And take the under for this game. I don't know what the line is.
47, believe it or not.
I'm going the under on that one.
Let's see. Baltimore Ravens at Cleveland Browns. The Ravens, if they beat the Browns, will lock up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So we're break out the Ravens gear that you have hidden in your house, Alex. Ravens -10 on the road against Cleveland.
Yeah, give me Baltimore. I think there is a scenario where Cleveland can still make the playoffs. It just takes like 46 different things to happen. But give me Baltimore to win big.
Yeah, and I don't think this will be one of them.
I don't think so.
Give me the Baltimore Jacksons -10 in this one. I think that line just moved up from 9.5 too. So
what could possibly change the line midweek in a Raven?
Yeah, I don't know. I just saw if we would have picked 5 minutes early, we would have only had to cover 9.5 points. Dallas Cowboys at Philadelphia Eagles. Boy, this is you bring your marbles, I'll bring mine. I gotta be honest, I'm not a fan of either one of these teams, obviously, but I'll be rooting for Philadelphia to win this game. Philadelphia at home +2.
Give me Dallas, but yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. No one wants to win the NFC East. Philadelphia is so banged up. They can't throw the ball. They can't cover. Dallas, I know for all their ills, is the better team on paper, so I think that wins out. I'll go with the Cowboys.
Isn't Dak a little banged up right now as well, too?
Yeah, he's going to miss some practice.
This is give me Philly. Give me Philly at home +2. Give me Philly in the outright here.
Ooh.
You know what? Here's your 3-team parlay out there, listeners. Here it is. Philly +2, the money line. Straight up, and take the over 46.
Wow, I like that.
There it is.
Where is the Stone Cold Lock of the Century of the Week?
I just gave it to you.
Is that
it's a parlay at that. Wow. If people hit that, I want you make sure you PayPal a little bit of that on over here. Arizona Cardinals at Seattle. Boy, Arizona kind of looked a little bit rejuvenated last week there. Arizona at Seattle. Seattle laying 9.5 at home.
I think Arizona might cover this one. I've been high on Seattle all year, but I really like what Arizona's doing. I mean, I think they look rejuvenated, but I also think Cleveland just looks that checked out. But I think the Cardinals find a way to cover this one.
I'm going to go opposite on you on this. I'm going all in here. Lay the 9.5 at home. Young quarterback on the road. That place gets pretty loud. Going to be a few problems, I think, for him in there. I'll lay the 9.5. Kansas City on the road at the Chicago Bears. Bears +6.5.
Who was it, Chicago and who?
Kansas City.
Yeah, give me the Chiefs. Our defense has really picked it up. I mean, we talk about the Chiefs' offense a lot, but that defense is playing legitimately good football, so I'm going to go with KC.
I'm with you on this one as well, too. Kansas City laid a 6.5 there. Is it the Sunday night or the Monday night game?
I don't know.
On the 23rd. Anyway, Green Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota, believe it or not, Minnesota laying 5 at home.
Give me Green Bay. Vikings, they want to run the ball. No, Dalvin Cook probably not going to play. Madison's banged up. Probably going to rely on Mike Boone. So give me the Packers.
Yeah, this was mighty attractive, I think, as well, too. I'll take the +5 there. All right, that brings us to the Steelers at the Jets. This thing has held steady all week. Probably not too terribly surprising. Steelers on the road. Jets +3.
I keep trying to find ways to describe likely low-scoring affairs, and I just run out of ways. But I just think Pittsburgh, again, that defense is better than the Jets' offense. I think it's going to be a close game on the road. The Jets are playing better. It's going to be like a very Arizona type of game where the Steelers just do enough there. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the New York Jets 16-13. Barn burner.
I'm going to take a close score. There's a little twinge in me that says, man, I got a little bit of worry about this one. Let me hit that 17-16 again, Steelers. Give me.
You're all about the 1-point game.
Yeah, because that offense scares me. And look, there's not a bad Jets defense here. So punt's a good thing. Can we break that dang turnover streak, man? If you just stop turning, and Randy said as much yesterday. If we don't turn the football over, we're gonna be in good shape here. Mm-hmm. So I don't mind punt being in the playbook right now as it is. But give me 17-16. In other words, give me the Jets +3 here.
Yep. Okay. Good deal on that. Yeah, I think it's a low-scoring game. I think both defenses play pretty stingy. Pretty sturdy groups overall. They don't make a lot of mistakes. So it comes down to the kickers. Maybe it might come down to what special teams unit plays the better of the two.
Nicholas Gooden writes in.
Real quick, Dave, before I get to that, one thing I wanted to mention I forgot to cover was the Hall of Fame. Was it semifinalists or the Centennial class?
Yeah.
Group. Is it the Centennial group?
They're calling them a Centennial Slate semifinalist. Does that sound right?
That's a mouthful, but that sounds right. But anyway, for the Steelers side, 3 on that ballot. Donnie Shell, right?
Yeah.
Okay, making sure. That's your guy. I know that you've been on that table for a long time. Bill Cowher and Buddy Parker. So congrats to those guys.
Yeah, I don't think Buddy Parker's got a chance, unfortunately. I really don't. I don't know how it's going to break down. I'm concerned Bill Cowher probably not going to make this cut either here.
What about Shell?
Man,
I hope so.
If ever was a year for him to get in, it's this year. I mean, if he doesn't get in this year, it just seems like it's going to be hard because, kind of being an expanded class here. I mean, when does he get in if it's not this year?
Right. How many get in from this? Is it 20 from this?
100. How many contributors? 3 contributors. I'll have to look at the press release here, but obviously most of. And here's the thing too: why didn't Bill Nunn make this list?
Right. Yeah, I was floored by that. I don't think you can talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty and then by extension the league without talking about Bill Nunn.
And then, obviously people are going to say, well, L.C. Greenwood should be on this list too. Yeah, I get that as well too. But, man, how can we're talking about the 100 season of the NFL, and you just put in Gil Brandt last year as a contributor there. How can you talk about the 100-year celebration of the NFL and not talk about the 70s Steelers, the dynasty? And when you talk about that those teams, you got to talk about Bill Nunn. Yep. So it just makes no sense there. Here's the thing. I'm disappointed that Nunn obviously wasn't a semifinalist. I think he's going to get in. I think I think Nunn will get in. I
don't know. I feel like if he's not on this ballot, what point is he ever going to get in?
I think he'll get, because they have to put a couple contributors in, and I think that's his kind of ticket there. And I don't view there kind of being a huge log jam there. So I have a good feeling that he'll get in. It just feels like it should have been this year. So that's why I'm able to I'm upset, but I'm probably not as upset as most on that, because I do feel that it's just a matter of 2 or 3 years before he gets in, okay? But once again, how can you have the 100-year celebration of the NFL and really not kind of consider him at least as a semifinalist anyway? When it comes to dynasty, we've had our conversations on this, man.
Sure.
Look, divide his career up if you want. Divide it up, with him being part of the 4 Steelers teams that won the Super Bowl, and then divide it up afterwards. Look at him. Look at the stats and everything that he did post championship teams. Man, that alone can get him in, I think. And I think a lot of times they look at him and they regard him as kind of a coattail piece of that, the steel curtain and all like that. And that just wasn't the case, man. It just really, really wasn't. And because of his play. Now look, if he had only played, if his stats and all would have dropped off, tremendously after that's one thing, but they didn't, So 51 interceptions, man.
Preach it.
I kind of sound like I got the John Gruden man going here, But
no, good case.
And once again, if there was ever a year that best chance for him to get in, I think it's this year. I'm worried that if he doesn't get in now, I don't know, when will he?
Yeah, I hear you. I have those same concerns. And listen, I love the pre-Noel guys as much as anybody, but I don't really know how Buddy Barker ends up on this list.
Yeah.
I guess his record was decent, but his stories in Pittsburgh and his legacy is not very good, for trading away every draft pick imaginable, cutting Lynn Shadnoy, one of the best players of those 50s Steelers, and just making some really poor decisions. So, he's not going to obviously make it the whole way through, but congrats to everyone for making it, and we'll see what happens with Donnie Shell and Bill Cowher.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on Cowher? I think Cowher gets in maybe eventually.
Yeah, I think eventually.
I don't know if it's this year or not, though.
Yeah, my gut says it won't be this year. I'm really pulling for Donnie Shell. I think he deserves it the most out of those 3. We'll see. It's hard to really know who's going to, out of a list this big, to really try to narrow it down and say who's going to make it. But we'll keep you posted. I'm not sure when's the next list, in January, I guess.
Yeah, I forget what the press release said on that. But man, how great would it be? Is there any inkling, or do you have any queasiness now about Troy Polamalu based on just the NFL 100 alone?
No,
is there anything churning, saying, man, I kind of wonder if he's going to get the shaft or whatnot? Anything whatsoever with him?
I'm not feeling it. They better not. I think it'd be ridiculous if he doesn't make it first ballot. So I don't have any sort of queasiness.
I do, but it's all based on that NFL 100.
But they're different voters, or different. I don't know. You're obviously choosing all players versus just the players on the ballot this year, a smaller pool. So I still think Troy's going to make it.
How great would it be to have Faneca, Polamalu, and Donnie Shell go in? Boy, they would obviously have to play in you would think that the Steelers would be the Hall of Fame game, one of the two teams, if that happened. I mean, hopefully this. I mean, look, we think Polamalu should get in. I don't know where I come down on. Obviously I think Shell should get in. Whether or not he is, man, I don't know. And Faneca, now that that log jam, he should be the next log coming down.
Or is he the log, or is he just jammed? Like which one is he? Stuck.
That's another guy. I mean, if you look at the things that him having to move to tackle that one season and all like that cost him an All-Pro season and all like that. I mean, how can you not look at the footage from those years and have him stick out as the top guard? In the NFL for all those years and all. So, and
just the model of durability, consistency. I'm looking at the stats now. He played 16 straight games for his last 8 years. I mean, just insane durability, which is what you want in an offensive lineman, and he showed that durability throughout his entire career. So, remarkable career. He deserves to get in, no doubt about it.
Yeah, but I know people say, well, the Steelers bias will get him this year, and we'll see. But I think those three guys should get in. Talking about Shell, Polamalu, and Faneca, there's never a better time to put all three of those guys in, I don't think.
Worthy of it, for sure. All right, Dave, let's get back to some reader emails.
All right, man, something smells in here. I think it's me. I haven't showered in a few days.
Dave, take a shower.
Man, I look like death warmed over, man. Nicholas writes in, got a question about Dave's favorite topic, salary cap. Could you give like a 3-minute crash course on salary cap for dummies? What's the salary? What the salary cap is currently? How many players' contracts affected? How can it be massaged, and the whole dead money thing? Nicholas, man, to give 3 minutes on that, I can't do it. But with the offseason not too far around the corner here, Alex and I are going to have a lot of time. And I promise, Nicholas, try to email me to remind me once we get kind of outside of the season for a couple of 3 weeks to give a full breakdown on it. To try to do it in 3 minutes or so, you're going to have more questions because I'm going to do a crappy job of it, trying to explain it in a 3-minute crash course, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll have an off-season episode where we can really delve into the salary cap. We're kind of running along already, so I think that's a good idea, Dave.
Brett Nile, hey, Dave and Alex, hey, I had a couple of CBA questions, so I thought I'd ask resident experts. If the team doesn't pick up the option on Vance McDonald, and I don't think they should, when he signs with the Patriots, we all see that coming. Will the Steelers get compensatory value for that signing? My thoughts is yes, but want to know for sure. I don't think so, because I think it's actually will go in the books as a cut. Because he's under contract now. So I'm fairly sure that it technically will be, if they don't pick it up, it'll be Steelers, terminate the contract of Vance McDonald. I'm pretty sure about that, but I'll try to double check there. Number 2, AB made a comment this week about how 20 teams were interested in signing him, so I cinched up my tinfoil hat, came up with a possible reason. If a team were to sign AB for Week 17, he's not suspended yet and would likely be able to play pending appeal when AB signs with the Cowboys in the offseason. We all see that coming. Would that team get compensatory pick value, or is there something in the CBA to prevent them from stealing a draft pick like that? Oh, man, I mean, obviously he'd have to be signed to a I don't know post-dead. I don't think there's any stipulation that says if a team signed him like this week to a 1-year contract and then he went somewhere else for big money during free agency, that a team wouldn't get compensatory value for that. I'm trying to recall an instance that speaks otherwise. It's a good question. I'm trying to. I always try to go to, have I seen this happen before? And I'm drawing a blank on that. So I think technically, if a team want to sign Week 17 to basically what would turn out being a 1-week contract, and then he left as a obviously an unrestricted free agent. I mean, I would think that would work.
I guess the question is there a minimum amount of time that player has to be on your roster for to get compensated later?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the first time I've ever really considered that, to be honest with you. And boy, that thing, That's why I
Yeah.
keep it in the bathroom, man. When exactly does the CBA expire? Is it before or after the 2022 draft? In other words, if the team does lose free agency after 2000, I think it expires through the 2021 season, right?
It was the 10-year deal they signed in 2010.
I'm trying to remember because didn't they have the draft? They had the draft the last time. And then the lockout happened after that. So
right. I think it runs through next season, right?
Right. It runs through 2021 up until the start of the new league year, which is in March.
So March of 2021 or 2022?
Next year is the final year of the CBA.
Right.
So it would 2021. March of 2021.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Got it.
Good questions. I don't know if I gave 100%. It's just some of the things I don't think about. Danielle Russell, good day, David Alex. I wonder if you had a chance to look at Gentry's play at all from this last game. Do you think there has been any progression in his blocking ability since training camp? I really did not focus on that this time around.
Yeah, I looked a little. It looked competent. It looked okay, but there's not enough volume there to really be able to judge it, from then to now. So it just hasn't played enough, especially in the regular season, to really give you a good gauge. So if he plays some more, obviously if Vance were to miss a game or if there's an opportunity, we'll look at it again. But there's not enough volume to really give you a concrete answer right now.
Yeah, how many snaps did he even play in that game?
Like 15, 20. I can look it up here really quickly. It was more than a couple. I think. Caught his first pass. What do you have? 14 snaps on offense.
All right, 24% of total there with him from that last game there. Yeah, just not a large selection size, and I think quite a few of them they were passing. At least half of them, I think, were pass plays, if I remember correctly. Anyway, Todd Gensler writes in, hey, guys, lots to ponder before next game. I was listening to Tunch and Wolf. It's always interesting to hear everyone's perspective. Anyways, Paxton Lynch is 6'6", and evidently has a cannon of an arm, more than anyone else on a team. What was that?
That was a Paxton Lynch question.
You losing air?
No to Paxton Lynch. I'm sorry, guys. No to Paxton Lynch.
You got a leak, Alex? I know we need to ride this ship and not make it change, but Duck clearly lacks arm strength, and that was clearly evident on all of his picks against Buffalo. I noticed you both had a resounding no when asked about giving him a shot. Is this just because we don't need another project this deep in our run? He has the most upside. Also, Dave, he gets into my health and all like that. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to talk about my health right now at Christmas time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know what Paxton Lynch, what that means. He has the most upside because he was a first-round pick, because he's the biggest dude. I don't think the upside's really there. I just want to roll with the guys that have been working with his team since camp and right now, and not trying to do new quarterbacks. Again, I think everyone loves the unknown potential of the backup quarterback, but more often than not, it doesn't work out. So just roll with the guys you have right now with Duck, and I'm not focused on what Paxton Lynch is doing running scout team.
Todd, I appreciate the question. Ask everything's okay. Look, I haven't been okay since I was 6 years old. How's that? Let's see here. What else do we have here? Running low here. Todd Johnson. Hi, Dave and Alex. I apologize in advance. Linked to see a few episodes I may about haven't heard on another podcast that restructures this coming season would be adversely affected by experience. You, however, heard this claim once again. Decided looking. Todd, you wrote in that restructures can't be done, but there is the 30% rule that Alex and I have talked about for quite a while now. So there is, and that was as far back as even deals this year. The 30% increase rule. It's not that you can't do restructures. It's just how, because you have an uncapped year in here, you can't go tossing. In other words, you can't just toss a load of money aside there. So that was a stipulation. And if you listen to past contract, I think the question that you originally asked was you had heard that restructures can't be done. They can be done. They just have to, and new contract extensions and all, it falls into the same category. Contract extensions, contract restructures. You've got that 30% rule in there.
Gotcha.
You remember me talking about 30% rule, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we talked about that a couple episodes ago. Yeah, I just don't have a whole lot to add when it comes to that stuff. I defer to you in most of those moments.
All right, Brian Kaiser writes in, good day, fellas. Brian Kaiser from Minerva, Ohio. Where's Minerva, Ohio at, Alex?
Oh, it's in Ohio.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, smart Alex. Just a quick couple of questions in light of discussions about Maurkice Pouncey. Is he Hall of Fame worthy? If not, could he be, and what would it take for him to get there? Thanks, guys. Keep up amazing work, and Merry Christmas to you and your families. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about it before briefly. I think the talent is there. I think obviously the injuries have played a factor. If he'd been healthy and not missed, big chunks of his career and basically full seasons, then maybe he would have a stronger case. I think, again, from a talent standpoint, I think he's worthy of it. Do I think he actually gets in the Hall of Fame someday? Probably not, though I think David DeCastro has decent odds if his career keeps playing out the way that it is.
Yeah, I'd have to say a no on Maurkice. I like Pouncey.
Are you saying no in terms of what you believe, or what do you think will actually happen?
Both.
Both? Okay, that's
fair.
fair.
I don't think he gets in. I mean, during his playing time, was he ever the top 2 or 3 center in the league?
I think he was. I think he's still up there. I don't think he's quite up there, maybe as what he once was.
If he was, how long did that period last?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think he's been regarded as one of the better, close to one of the best centers of this, generation, but of this kind of decade, time that he's played. But again, I think the injuries and just it's so hard for linemen to get in. Obviously, seeing the trouble Fanick is getting with so many Steelers centers in the Hall of Fame to begin with, which I guess might help him in a sense, but I think hurts him ultimately. I don't think it happens for Pouncey.
Yeah, I don't. Probably not as long as I'm on this earth. But all right, with that, I think we've gotten through most of them here. Someone had wrote about question about you and I meeting and stuff like. No, Alex and I have not met yet. Anything along those lines. I'm sorry if we missed anything. Just not enough time to get all these things in here all the time. We run long on these things. Anything else to add, Alex?
No, just hope for a win, control your own destiny, and root for the Bucs and root for the Saints.
I'm going to try to control my own destiny the rest of today. Yeah, we all are day to day. Ain't that the truth? In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. And if you would like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, for $25, you can have one for one full calendar year. No ads. And you can get that by going to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, up right navigational bar. Until Monday, I'm ready to start talking about more wins, Alex, and hopefully we can do that on Monday. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.